brand new Visme user or you're a seasoned user, I just want to reiterate the opportunity to find data-based visuals that you use as your launching pad. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. There's a lot of templates you can use, as well as borrowing and composing from a lot of different areas. I just want everybody in the room, specifically if you're newer to Visme, to be really familiar with that. So we're going to make sure that we cover that topic and then saturate all things data tab inside of the Visme editor. That's going to be charts and graphs, tables, diagrams, interactive maps, widgets, and dynamic fields. We got a lot to cover today, everybody. Definitely a lot to cover. So just stick along with me, answer questions. Keep in mind this webinar is being recorded. So if it feels like some areas I didn't sink in as much or I went too fast, you could always watch it back on demand. And we have an amazing network of resources and support articles, as well as our live 24/7 support team to help you with any questions you have as well. So rest assured, even if today I kind of missed a couple pieces, or just you might have maybe multitasked for a moment, or I went too fast, you can always go back and find something anywhere across the World Wide Web to get help later on. And throughout today's session, I'm going to be weaving in that data storytelling and interactive design. That's a really key thing for me when I'm doing data visualization. What does it mean to tell a story with data? How do you promote insights through simple visuals while also promoting kind of a conversational and journey-based navigation? Ooh, I'm getting emojis with this. Yay. You guys are excited about that? That makes me really happy, because the data visualization in Visme alone is really awesome, very modern, very fresh. A lot of flexibility and just creating something that the eyeballs feel like they don't see every day, which is really what captivates our audiences. But to actually then add in some of those interactive elements to it to allow yourself, as you're presenting, to start with the broad and then dig into the details, to drill in, if you will, and then also allowing your on-demand audience. If you're delivering this report saying, hey, take a peek, let me know if you have questions, you need to be able to allow them to also navigate through the data and the report to find the key insights that they're looking for. And that's what I want to cover with you guys today. Data is important. Data is really important. I think you all here know that. That's why you're here. I love this quote that I found from Clive Humby. He's a UK-based entrepreneur and kind of data expert, has done a lot of really great things. This is just the perfect way to explain it. Data is the new oil. I don't know about you guys, but I very rarely get asked a question here at Visme where I just like shoot from the hip and answer. I'm always going out and double checking any kind of data I have in order to back up my answer. And I think that's kind of how we've been crafted and trained now, to just understand that there's point and reason behind data. With that said, why is data so important? This is where I want to bring you some data truths. And then I'm going to back them up with data, actually. I'm going to back them up with researched and true data that explains why data is so relevant and important. And not just data, but visual data, okay? So what does data do for us? Why is it something that we lean into so much? It's really simple, everybody. It informs and it inspires. People need to know things. When we're sending them information, we need to compel discussions and we need to compel decisions. We need to drive people to have an aha. Oh, okay, I got it. Might have to have some initial discussion about things. Let's talk about that. Let's iron out and get really scrappy with that information. And ultimately, let's create action from it. Let's discuss it, make decisions, and let's then go out and fix it, act on it, work with it. Let's double down on this. Let's approach that. Everything is provoking a subsequent reaction when we're looking at data, because it informs us and it gives us that inspiration. What you might see over here, everybody, and this is where I'm going to start to drill into some of these interactive things that I've done to reveal data. Much of what I'm doing here are things that you guys can do. Key point, everybody. I built this presentation deck. I did this all by myself. I'm head of sales and CX here at Visme, everybody. I am not a designer, okay? So if you like what you see, all these elements, you can do something just like this. I didn't lean on a graphic designer that went to college to build this. It is built in Visme. I built it top to bottom all alone. So a lot of things that you're seeing in here should be great demonstration for things that you can also do. Notice down here in the bottom right corner, everybody, this is where I'm dripping into my first form of interactivity to reveal data that supports the topic at hand here. When I click on this little icon in the bottom right corner, let's talk about why data is so important again, right? Specifically in the professional world for companies. Companies that use data visualization are 5 times more likely to make faster decisions. 5 times, that's a lot. And 3 times more likely to execute them versus their competitors that are not leveraging data visualization. Those are some really compelling metrics. That's some really compelling research here. And that's not all that I have for you. I have even more, just to really validate the importance and the need around data, and also just to even reveal some of those interactive capabilities Visme has. So hopping into this slide here, everybody, I have 4 key points here backing up why visual data is so important. It's one thing to have data, but what about visual data, right? Let's talk about what the brain does. 50% of the human brain is processing visual information. 50%. That's really important. I'm sure the brain is doing a lot of stuff, not just processing visual stuff, but processing text, making decisions, operating our body. So that's more than just 2 things, right? But 50% of the brain. So I'm going to go far to say, oh, I got those balloons going up. I don't know if you guys saw those, the reactions happening on my computer. I don't, the 50% of the brain, then I'm going to lean as far as saying that that's likely very much like the majority of the brain. Majority of what the brain is processing is visual information. Now, what about speed? How does visuals help our brain and the speed of our brain? Because we don't have a lot of time, right? There's not a lot of time in our day. We're trying to save time. We're trying to get time back. The brain is processing visuals 60,000 times faster than text information. Isn't that bananas? 60,000. I know first and foremost, I'm a visual learner. How many times do you have people say to you, I'm a visual learner? I like to see visuals. If I can see it, it's embedded in my neural pathways. I learn it a lot faster. That's true for a lot of learners today. Definitely some statistics and great research out there around visual learning and different learning styles as well. What about how, notice how I'm hovering here, everybody? This is how you can leverage Visme's interactivity. This is our hotspot hover effect here, where when I hover over these different headings, it's revealing different stats and information. These are just groups of text, everybody. So this is a great example on how you can leverage that storytelling by keeping your visuals when you first land on the screen simple. Don't overwhelm. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. And I think that's a key factor of storytelling. Don't overwhelm your audiences, whether you're delivering like I am today, live in front of an audience, or you're sending something on demand for them to view back. What about, let's keep moving along here. How does visual data help in terms of results? Like what kind of results do we get from that? This is a big one. Groups using visual language experience a 21% increase. Notice how I'm accenting this data here by giving you that little arrow. Again, helping you guys with this information, not just doing a text, but changing my text, breaking up the text, changing it by adding in an arrow here. But here's the kicker. 21% increase in a group's ability to reach consensus on something. So not only do we need to talk about things, again, inspire, to create discussion, support decisions, but to actually speed up the process of reaching consensus thanks to just using visual data versus like written data or spreadsheet data. That is a huge increase. Again, time savings, getting time back. This is another good one. Notice how now actually even in this visual, I'm bringing visuals together that you saw in previous ones and kind of creating a composition here. Visuals can increase learning and information retention. Retention is so important. It's one thing to get information, but to actually remember it. To remember it and leverage it and not forget it, because it needs to be the driver for a lot of things that we do from there. For you to use visuals and then in turn increase your retention levels by 78%, that's huge. This is really significant when we're talking about folks inside of the training content space. I mean, data visualization is important, but like training content creators, a really strong use case for Visme. Also sales, using Visme for sales and marketing. We want our buyers and our audiences to remember things. We don't want them to forget. So when you're leveraging the visuals to support it, you're upping your chance of retention by 78%. Who doesn't want that? How you guys feeling about some of these stats? How you guys feeling about some of this interactivity too? You guys getting excited to see some of this behind the scenes and know how you can do it? Give me some reactions, everybody. Let's close up the whole opening here to just set the stage and talk about data storytelling. Okay, here's the deal, everybody. Me, I'm a Visme expert. I know Visme inside and out. I know our data visualization. It's actually the #1 reason I started using Visme. I was out there on the hunt. shopping and browsing for a new content creation solution that I could use to create really impressive data visuals for my clients. And that's when I found Visme. That was over 4 years ago. And I loved the platform so much. I raised my head and I said, hey, can I come work for you? And the rest was history. But here's the deal. You know what matters in your data. And I think what all of us tend to forget is we're the masters of our data. We're the subject matter experts. And even though our audience might be an internal audience, maybe it's leadership, maybe it's our team, maybe it's adjacent teams or departments that we need to communicate with, even if it's internal, especially external, but even internal, you know the data best. Your audience doesn't necessarily know that data. They don't sit with it every day. So really what matters even more inside of your data is making it into a digestible, consumable format. Your listeners and your viewers need to be able to evolve through the data. So with the support and allowing them to do that, don't overwhelm them at first glance. Keep things simple. I always say start broad, but then allow drill-ins. Start with a simple view and allow then your audience, because maybe they want to learn more about that, but maybe they don't. Maybe that's like good enough for them, but maybe somebody else viewing this actually does want to drill in. Allow them to take that choice. Allow them to do that on their own. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Ultimately, being able to anticipate and prepare. That's a key thing. Again, you know what matters in your data, and you likely know what your audience does care about or should care about. So anticipating questions and preparing what you're sending out, even if that means somebody might be viewing that back and what you did prepare and put together might not necessarily matter to person A, but it does to person B. You want to be able to support conversation. Whether you are presenting it live, you want to be able to have somebody raise their hand and say, well, what about this? You can then jump out and speak specifically to that. Conversational presenting, if you're not familiar with it, is a key topic today. Being able to have more dialogue while you're presenting and engaging your audience is going to, again, allow for that stronger saturation of the information and create a better network and better outcomes thereafter. Because when more people feel like they have a voice and feel like they're involved, the better outcomes you have and the more action you can drive out of those conversations. And lastly, use interactivity to reveal. Allow people to engage inside of your data, inside of any piece of content for that matter. Interactivity is really big, not just with data, but also just in journey-based content, allowing people to decide, where do I want to go? What's my journey? This section and this topic matters to me, but I'll come back to the other sections. And interactivity is appropriate only in certain use cases. Sometimes, like, again, talking about training content creation, we have a lot of training content creators. Training content's pretty linear. We can't always allow people to pick which way they want to go. So interactivity and self-navigation, journey-based navigation, and there is a time and place for it. But what I love about using interactivity is doing something similar like I just did back on this last slide, this one right here. Bringing in a lot of details into one slide without it being a collage. Because when it's a collage, the eyeballs don't necessarily always know where to go. And it allows me to then reveal and peel back the layers and have more of that conversational presenting just like I'm doing today. So just to give you guys some ideas, and I'll go back into the editor and show you how I concocted this slide and talk to you about how you can actually have maybe a chart or a graph. And there's a specific section of the chart or graph where somebody might be able to click to jump to another slide and drill into data regarding that specific area of the chart. So broad with drill in opportunities, okay? All right, everybody. Notice how to conversational presenting. Conversational presenting is just as much interactivity, but it is also just as much allowing you to know what slide to jump to if the conversation is evolving and jumping ahead to something else. Taking yourself out to that visual backdrop to support the discussion. And I think a great way to do that even purely is through Visme's presenting opportunities. Notice how I'm clicking. I might be going too fast and I haven't shown you what it is yet. So let me cover that. This little control bar at the bottom of the window here, this whole present mode that I'm using is through Visme's published project URLs. So inside of any content tool, you can download. Downloading is essential. You need to be able to download. I don't want to suggest that downloading isn't needed in some cases. But in my case here, as I'm presenting, even potentially as I want to grab this and share it with all of you, I'm not scared to do that. Let's allow you guys to actually even experience this on your local systems. I'm then linking you directly out to slide number 4, which I had that interactivity, so you guys can experience that on your own. What I'm doing is getting Visme's published project URLs. And in doing that, it allows me to have all of the interactivity, all of the animations. It supports video playback. It allows me to then have this control bar where I can click this little grid menu down in the bottom. If you lost me, everybody, here's my cursor. I'm shaking it around here. Down here at the bottom, pop that open. This allows me then to jump to any of those other slides that are relevant to the conversation that's happening. Typically in a presentation model, we've been used to going very linear. What do I mean by linear? I mean, we're going slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. Oh, and someone brought up something on slide 3, and I know that I have a relevant visual on slide 10. So I'm going through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's just kind of holding the conversation captive to going back and forth slide by slide versus opening up a beautiful menu like this and just being able to jump out to something else that is relevant directly from there. And then if we need to revolve back to the conversation to kind of pick it up again from those main ideas, I just open up this menu again and go directly where I need to go. With that said, I need to jump back to slide 6 here. Because first thing on that agenda after we covered data, the importance of data storytelling, set the stage today. Curious if a lot of those points resonated for all of you. Give me some emojis or drop in some comments on what really kind of gave you even an aha moment today from some of the data. What really struck you, maybe something that you didn't know. I want you all to be really confident and familiar with, though, how do you kickstart your data visualization creations? And at about this time in the webinar, everybody, I'm actually going to turn my camera off because I'm going to leave the presentation. My focus is over here on my other screen anyways. And at the end of the day, you guys don't care about this mug, right? You guys care about the presentation and the platform. So I'll kill my camera, spare some bandwidth here. What I want to bring you guys familiarity to, for those of you that are really new to Visme, let's just take a little bit of a navigational approach here. Where you land when you first log in, you're just getting into your account. We refer to this as our dashboard, everybody. This is where all of your projects you've created will be stored. You'll build out this beautiful library over time. Anything can be organized into folders. You can present and edit right from here, moving the editor, moving the project into the editor so that you can work on it. We're going to go in the behind the scenes of the presentation deck that I have prepared. So we'll get into the editor here shortly. Also, a couple of things too, when it comes to projects, these little 3 vertical dots here in the bottom right corner of a presentation, that's a really good menu to get familiar with, everybody, if you're brand new. Lots of really nice options in there, like duplicating, sharing your project. Even, notice right down here, we love data, right? Everybody on this webinar loves data. I'm going to go out on the limb here and say that that is the truth. Analytics. Remember I just talked about how you publish projects? It supports you to present live. You can even take those links and send them out to anybody so anyone with that link can view it. It's going to support all the animations, all the interactivity, video playback. It's really creating the most dynamic experience of your content possible. The beauty of that is too, is as soon as anybody starts viewing that project with you, you start getting viewer analytics on it. So we even have some data right inside of Visme on how people are looking at your content through those published links. Love that. But let's talk about how you get out and start browsing some of our templates and our different design options to be able to jumpstart your data visual creation. We click that Create New button, everybody, and hovering on the Project option here. A lot of other options in this window, but hovering on Project. This is where you can jump out to what we call our template library. I already have that open in this tab up here, and this is that nice helicopter ride view of all that Visme has in store for you. In fairness, everybody, data visualization and creating a report can go into a lot of different things. We already saw how important data visualization is. Arguably, data visualization can accompany and support any kind of content, whether it's an annual report or a marketing video or a social media graphic or a sales pitch deck, whatever, or a piece of training content for that matter. We are incorporating data into everything. Therefore, I think a key factor here is to just highlight any of these format types will support Visme's data visualizations. Not only can you take advantage of just the standard charts and graphs option here across all these different chart options and some design to kick you off with and just creating those standalone graphics for data viz and charts and graphs. Keep in mind, everybody, let's say you come out to this chart and graph window here in this tab and you find a chart and graph that you really, really like. But Maybe you're working on a Visme infographic. Maybe you're creating like a data dashboard, if you will, and you just really want to be able to kind of plug and play something you saw in that chart and graph window into an infographic. All you have to do, folks, is open up the two projects in your browser tabs or in your Visme desktop app tabs, and you can copy and paste elements and visuals from one project to the next. So just getting familiar with right-clicking and copying, or selecting all. If you're familiar with that and you want to save some time, you can select all objects, copy them, move over to the other tab and paste them where you want to go. Then you can modify and adjust them from there. Key thing here too, everybody, because you can use data visualization in any type of project, here's what I generally do. I just like to search for the keyword data in this window here. Lots of options coming up. I anticipate we actually probably have a lot more templates than that number that was just shown there, but that's likely just what has been tagged. But look at here. This is now curating them into documents, infographics, printables, charts, anything that has data visualization relevant within it, we are surfacing those for you. Let's talk a little bit about the different format types and good use cases for them. Documents, we have a lot of folks going after documents with data visualization when they do need to do an annual report. And they do need to download that as a PDF. Document style formats are really good for PDF export. You can publish them into those published URLs. You can even have a document that has like a page flip effect, everybody. These flip book type of transitions and experiences have been really big for a while. In a document, you can actually even feel like that document is flipping pages, which is cool. And then it'll have a center seam. And that can give you a really almost like a kind of a true report, or like a magazine type of effect. Documents still supporting all the great dynamic capabilities so long as you publish those into those published links. When you're taking something out as a PDF, keep in mind everyone that our animations to our charts and graphs, our animated data widgets, the interactivity on our interactive maps, any pop-up hover effects that you do, those are going to be flattened inside of a PDF. That is the nature of a PDF format. I love infographics, everybody. We use infographics a lot here at Visme for our content, having our sales proposals inside of them. Whenever we're communicating something with our customer base, our CS newsletters, our customer success newsletters are in infographics. We have so many infographics exclusive to kind of data dashboarding. And what I like about using infographics is it really allows you to create that long scrolling single page experience, almost kind of feels like a microsite. And that's really great if you have just quick high level data that you want somebody to be able to engage with. Maybe this is a shorter time period report, or it's really focusing on just a key idea. And it makes sense to just have it in that one single page long scroll type of experience. That's a great use case for infographics. But of course, too, where we're going to be hanging out today is inside of a presentation. Being able to kind of parse and partition from slide to slide or page to page is really useful. This is also a great use case for when you do want to have somebody click to jump out to another section inside of the presentation or another slide where they can then, again, drill into the data specifically. Presentations will be a great use case for that. But ultimately, data viz can go anywhere. I always just encourage you to think about, how am I going to deliver this data to my audience? Am I presenting live? Am I sending things out on demand? How does my audience usually prefer to receive information? Is my audience kind of still PDF lovers? They like PDFs, I should deliver a PDF. Make sure you're strategizing the format type you use and the design that you do based off of what is going to really be best for your audience. All right, everybody. The flip books. Yes, Sarah, flip books are the bomb. Thanks for jumping in on that one. Glad that you covered that. Everybody, let's really kind of pick up where we left off. This was the slide where I picked up where I left off in the final present view before going out into the create window. And everybody, just for those of you that this is your first look, I'm brand new to Visme. What you're looking at here now is what we call the editor. The editor is where we have all the fun. This is where we do all the design. And this is where we're going to spend a lot of time here today. We've got I do probably anticipate taking the full hour, everybody. I don't have the opportunity to schedule a webinar for a full hour. You might have received this for 45 minutes, but just want to make sure I give you guys the heads up. There's a lot to go over regarding data viz, and if you can make it till the end, I look forward to having you here. But in the event you do need to hop off, just a reminder, this is being recorded today. All right, everybody. Now we're going to jump over into Visme's data visualization features. Look over here, everybody. Over here on the left sidebar, I'm going to click on that data tab, and we're going to call those out from top to bottom here in that initial window. I have them named on the slide as well. Charts and graphs, diagrams, tables, interactive maps, data widgets, dynamic fields. And I have working slides available for all of these inside of the editor for us to get scrappy and work on some of these together. Starting first with charts and graphs. And in fairness, everybody, I could probably spend the next 30 minutes, even hour, talking exclusively about charts and graphs. So keep in mind, we're going to try to keep things as holistic as possible, getting into as much as I can while also being mindful of time. For those of you that might have very specific questions about charts and graphs, drop those into the questions tab for Alan and Catherine. For those of you that want to potentially go out and find some materials to search for articles or video tutorials that might help you with very specific questions or very specific use cases, I want to bring your attention down here, everybody, to that circle with a question mark. This is like your little goodie basket of help inside of the platform. This is where you can jump out and search for very specific keywords, and articles will pop up for you relevant to those keywords. In the case of charts and graphs here, this is where you can jump in and find a step-by-step guide and how-to article for creating charts and graphs, even a video tutorial, everybody. So being familiar with that little circle with the question mark, I'm actually a self-taught Visme user. Before I joined the team, these support articles is how I taught myself how to use Visme. You can also chat or email into our 24/7 support team in this window, everybody. You're going to hit on those really quick here. You click on the bottom right. That's where you're going to connect with them there. I want to hit on that first in case anybody needs to potentially hop off early. I want to make sure you guys know where to get help. This particular charter graph, everybody, this is what this charter graph started out as. Come over to the data tab here, click on that charts graph. I just brought in a vertical bar chart. By default, this is how charts and graphs are going to come in. And everyone, when it comes to any of these charts or graphs, you are going to have sample data here. Being familiar with that sample data is a really helpful guide to know, okay, how do I need to format my pivoted aggregate data as I'm bringing it in? So do keep in mind to just kind of double check those, kind of guide your eye on how do I potentially need to type in or copy and paste in any data to the chart data tab. So the chart data tab here, everybody, is really your editable window. This is where you can copy paste, you can manually type, you can add in any data you'd like inside of here, but as a best practice, everybody, remember, I gave that suggestion with data storytelling, keep it simple. Try not to overwhelm your audience. They don't sit with the data every day. They don't know what it means. So keep in mind, we usually recommend as a best practice to keep your rows. These are your rows going vertical and your columns are going horizontal. Try to keep this within 20 rows and 20 columns. So working with your aggregate pivoted data. There's raw data. I play with raw data. I like raw data, but typically you're going to do that inside of an Excel sheet or a Google sheet. What you can do then is if you're familiar with pivot tables and aggregation, definitely recommend checking out some YouTube videos if that's a new concept for you. Going out into your raw data, you can create pivot tables. Pivot tables might look something similar to this, stacked rows, columns that is essentially taking raw data and putting it into a smaller consumable format for you. I'm sitting inside of a Google Sheet here, everybody, because we're a Google suite here at Visme. We can, of course, also work inside of Excel, Microsoft Excel. We support those format types, which we'll cover here in just a moment. You can also just have one simple line of data, just like this one here, whether those are months of the year, each year individually. It can be all sorts of things. You can break things down and have some kind of stacked rows and columns as well. Ultimately, everybody, what you can do is in order to copy and paste this in, just select your data. And I'm just in a Command C to copy this. And then I'm going to go back out to this tab, click on A1 cell and paste it in. So that's one option. That's not necessarily what I did for this chart right here. In fact, what I did instead of copying and pasting, I used the Import Data tab. Here's where I can connect a Google Sheet by bringing in the live published Google Sheet. Or I can connect to Google Sheets natively through my Gmail account, through my Google account. What I love about that is it actually allows me to find any relevant sheets by name. I can then hone in on specific sections of that sheet, I might have a lot of tabs inside of that sheet. I can actually tell Visme then which sheet to bring data in from. You can actually even hone in on specific sections, even inside of that tab in that sheet. Pretty cool. But alternatively, what you might notice here for all of our Excel folks, you can also bring in an Excel file, an XLSX or a CSV, or connecting to Excel Online. I might be working in Google here, everybody, but I can still download something as a CSV file out of Google. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit File. Let me try again here. I need to refresh my window. Okay, download. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. It's really similar to the last one we just had. I'm going to download this as a CSV. When you download a CSV, it's always going to select the immediate tab that you have selected. And I do want to narrow in on this specific tab. So downloading it here. And from there, what I can do is upload an Excel file, select that from my local downloads. Here she is right here. Click that in and voila. So what this is doing for me is just automatically bringing in that data for me. And I can then, I'm going to eliminate this here, everybody. I'm going to bring that out, stretch this out here. We're going to kind of basically just craft this together, much like the last one. Notice here, though, notice this nice little pro tip down at the bottom. I'm trying to sprinkle some of those in for you guys. Use color strategically. Kind of going down that path again of data storytelling. How do we bring our viewers' eyeballs into where we really want them to focus in on something? This is all one color here, but up here, everybody, I'm going to zoom in. People kind of can easily miss this. I call it the little flip switch. That's a super technical term, right? That little flip switch here, everybody, allows me to flip the data really quickly to change the formatting of which label goes into each axis. Once I do that, I open up the opportunity to have a separate color for all of these different vertical bars. I, from there, then can swap this out and start to have these different vertical bars be consistent in color. But remember the last one, if you caught that, if that caught your eye, I had the specific section at the end of this chart in separate colors, essentially highlighting the final last 3 months. That's what the last one looked like. So I'm going to keep updating these colors. I know this is taking me just in a quick second here, but definitely a lot faster than creating charts and graphs from scratch, if you know what I mean. I'm going to color these in a very bright red. Remember that idea that I shared with you, keep it simple, but allow drill downs. We're going to talk about how you can do that. So imagine this. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about the chart and graph settings and other capabilities there. But what if we wanted to call in the attention to these red bars and allow somebody to click there and jump out to another slide that then really hones in on more specific metrics and data to support that section and that data or that time series within the chart? I'm going to introduce you guys to the idea of the jump to links, navigational links, where you allow somebody to click, it jumps them out to another slide. I don't want to cover up these that area of the chart, everybody. But what I do want to do is have all things interactivity in Visme, pop-up, hover effect, jump to links, jumping from this location to another location in the project. That is all the concept of trigger and action. All things interactivity is trigger and action. That's a key thing to remember. So what I need to bring in is a trigger. Trigger creates the subsequent reaction when somebody engages with it. And my trigger, I can have a lot of different things. I've seen some people even do something where throughout an entire project, maybe they want to have, maybe there's this blinking little light bulb. Maybe that is your consistent trigger throughout an entire project. And on the second slide or the main menu slide, you tell your audience, hey folks, every time you see this little wiggling light bulb, click on it or hover on it to reveal more information. That's one option. Another option is maybe you want to allow somebody to actually even natively click on top of these bars themselves. I would simply then, folks, add in a shape, bring in a shape. But here's the thing. I bring in this shape, this color red covering that area of the chart. I can't see those bars. I can't see them, right? That is because we need to make this a transparent box. It's still there. It's physically in the project, but you see through it. That red color is not going to work. So let's bring our attention up to the upper left toolbar where you can do a lot of editing depending on the type of asset or object you've selected. And this little checkered box here, that's your transparent. So I can't see that box, but I now have a trigger. By selecting that option here, everybody remember trigger and action, all things interactivity. Come up to the action tab. That is where you can link out to another website even. Maybe you link out even to another published Visme project and you have reports crawling off of one another. So you make them really digestible and short. But if somebody wants to, hey, click here to view last quarter's report. And maybe you have a main menu and they can click on previous reports from the last quarters and they can open that in another tab and view that. A lot of cool things you can do there. This here, though, is then where we're going to allow somebody to be able to click on that transparent box and jump to another slide. These that you see here, everybody, these are all of our slides. If I hover over here on the right, the slides are numbered and they're also named. Slide number 9, this is named Dashboard Copy 1. I can double click here and change the name of it. New chart slide. And then here I go back out and click on that transparent box again. Want to make sure that's over the top of those bars nicely. Actions. And I want to jump now out to slide, new chart slide here, and hit apply. This means then when somebody clicks on that, it would jump them out to this next slide. You might then maybe want to have a home button on this slide or a back button that allows somebody to go back. They can click to go back to this main slide view here. So a lot of creative things that you can do to create that navigational interactivity. Keep things simple on your initial view and then allow your audiences to decide where do they want to drill in and learn more. Anticipate questions, anticipate interests and queries, and build that out. Have them prepared. I've never been dissatisfied with my preparation, even if somebody didn't want it or use it initially. I've never regretted going that extra couple of inches and getting more in here, because it's something that even later on I get to reference as a benchmark. So always go that little extra work and get that information in there. All right, everybody. Keeping mindful of time here, I also want to make sure that we have time to hit on all of these other things. The chart and graph settings, though, everyone. We didn't hit on the settings tab. This is really where you get to dial in on how you want this to look. There are so many flexible options inside of here. A couple of things I just really want to hit the high points of to get you familiar with it is your axes. You click on that little gear icon next to all of these, everybody, and this is where you can start to fine tune and tailor the color, the size of your text, changing your labels, changing the thickness of your axis. Instead of it being gray, because you can't see that well on my dark background, I can change it to white. So there's a lot of nice options here, even changing the alignment and the wrapping behavior of your labels rather than numbers here. Maybe you're using actual text, and that's long bodies of text to demonstrate the chart or graph. You can wrap that text. You can change the alignment. You can also change the minimum and maximum values of your distances between those different axis labels. So really experiment with this window and dial in on all those little levers that you get to pull in order to create this really custom chart and graph to really best display your data. Sometimes folks too, I love going out and just looking for charts and graphs out in the wild. I always pay attention to charts and graphs that I see in people's social media posts or on their website. And I'm always kind of creating a little mental snapshot of those because I always like to have that little like brain stash of ideas. And then I'll always even sometimes potentially save pages because I like to always see the different type of formatting things people have done to charts and graphs and really even try to use that as my own inspiration. You can have the legend on or off because of how we formatted this particular chart. That legend's quite busy, isn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off just to reduce that. Values, this is where you can bring in the actual labels of your chart and graph data that was in that chart data tab up here, everybody. Change your font, change your colors. We want to make this as flexible as possible for you to match your brand standards. So the color scheme, fonts, changing those so that you're getting the right level of contrast between everything. Maybe you want to have things rotate. Maybe it needs to go on top. And rather than having it directly on top, maybe it rotates a little bit. I know that's kind of, I'll stop for a second to allow you guys to actually allow it to render. It's refreshing every time I change that little dial there. So leave that there. Lots of things you can do. And keep in mind, we talked about interactivity. We support pop-up, hover effect, jump to links for slides. You can also, on our charts and graphs, by default, if somebody hovers on your bar or that section of the chart or graph, it is going to reveal data. It is going to pop up additional data for them. So just even natively through our chart and graph capability, we're already adding in that experiential type of data reveal. They can hover on it to learn more. Lots of good options too regarding values, everybody. Maybe these are percentages. So that would be my suffix. Notice here, if I put that little percentage sign at the end, it added that in as a label at the end of my values. So the prefix and suffix, maybe even prefix, it's an actual word. Maybe we don't need to put the percentage and suffix. Maybe we want to use the values as percents, and that just adds the percent at the end here. Or maybe we want to demonstrate as if all of these are a part of a whole data set. We can change the percentage here and it automatically curates that value for us. So welcome you to kind of pick around and, you know, flip some switches, click on some gear icons to drop down more options. The appearance tab is where you can turn off your grid, everybody, even adapt your background color. Notice by default, we have the checkered box selected, so it's a default background. So making that default for you automatically. You do get automations in your charts or graphs. We have a few different styles. We have some really fun, exciting ones and some smoother, softer ones. You can pick whichever one is best for you. In the event you're working with a lot of, if you have multi-rows, multi-columns, I love doing stacked bars where just a click of a button, it stacks everything for me. Super quick, really easy, and being able to even round the corners of your bars. Keep in mind, everybody, if I decide that this chart is not the best fit for me, up here in the upper right, notice here, this is where you can drop down this window. You can change your bar chart or any chart you're using for that matter to a different type just with a click of a button to find something that might be a better fit for you. Okay. Going on to everybody, diagrams. Diagrams also on that data tab. Let's close out and go back. Diagrams is right here. This allows you to just plug and play and bring in those individual elements within a diagram. Notice these little items that crawl off either side. This allows you to be able to build your diagrams and kind of allow these to just crawl right off, and moving your lines around, reformatting where those go. One thing I want to point out for you, everybody, because I've experienced this in the past, if you have created diagrams inside of other tools, I've found I'm almost like crossing my fingers, just begging and pleading. Nobody asked me to edit that down the road, because your boxes and your lines are all separate. And if you need to add another box, you have to respace everything, add new lines. Watch this. In Visme, those days are over. You do not need to worry about having to have so much time reconstructing your connections. This little box right here, let's say this needed to move down and I needed to create some space for some more boxes. See how that line's going with me? These lines are intelligently connected. I'm going to pull this off. And as I do, watch what happens. See those little dots that are showing up in those little hot locations on these boxes? I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this happen. When I select that line and I'm moving this around, see how I connected it and it gets that little sonar bubble? Watch, I'll do it again. Watch, see, it's connected. I can then off of this line create additional lines. There's this like little tiny green dot off of it that allows me to build and crawl off of this one to create even more lines and add in more boxes, everybody. You can do boxes that are separate. You can change these box styles if you want to change the color, the text, the border, the overall shape. You have all those options up here in the upper left corner. Alternatively, inside of the diagrams window, you can kind of a la carte and piece things together as you wish as well. Other options for the lines can be found here, but all of your lines, even once you select one, they're highly formatable. You can change the thickness. Maybe you want it to be more of a dash. If you want to add endpoints onto that, you can here also. I love our diagrams. We use them personally for ourselves as well, even for our org chart among creating process and procedure. Here's an idea, everybody. What if this is talking about the phase of a rollout or the phase of an adjustment or process or a key initiative? What if every single one of these boxes revealed a chart or graph or additional information? Much like I did here, up here in this slide. Remember, I revealed all these layers. See how they're all jumbled up together? That's how this works, everybody. These are all grouped objects and layers where when somebody clicks on something or hovers on something, it then reveals that subsequent reaction, trigger, and action. So let's say on phase 2, I'm going to actually even start to peel into another topic here to be mindful of time. Let's bring in a data widget. All of our data widgets here, from radials to horizontals to verticals to temperature measurements to clocks, lots of options, even arrays. I'm just going to bring in this one at the very tippy top here. All of these are highly customizable, everybody. Adjust your percentage. You saw some of these in my opening introduction with a lot of those great statistics, right? So we've seen these already, but I'm just going to show you how you can quickly modify that. Several other options in here. Let's say, though, when somebody hovers or clicks on phase 2, I want to reveal this data widget. Select your trigger and go up to actions. We already covered hyperlinking. We already talked about slide or page linking. I then want to introduce you to hotspots. This is where then when somebody engages with that phase 2 box, I drop this down. Here are all of the objects or groups of elements inside of this slide. This one being my 83% radial widget. I select that as my action. This is how I want the trigger to bring up radial for that 83%. Now I can decide, do I want that to come in on hover when someone rolls their cursor over it, or do I want that to be activated on click? I'm going to go ahead and hit click because we already saw hover earlier, and I'm going to hit apply. Now that connection is established, everybody. I'm going to go back out to this published project URL. Another key benefit, everybody, to keep in mind, these published project URLs, they're always going to show the latest and greatest changes. This is what that previous slide looked like just before. I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh though. As soon as anybody goes back out to this project, again, and that's why I love using these published links for DataViz, because we always have to update data, but to have to resend new PDF files via email to everybody as soon as the data changes, that can be a little tedious. So to just have a published URL that people can bookmark and you just update the data and they can rest assured whenever they go out and revisit that published project, it always has the latest and greatest in it. Notice here, we have those three options here. Number 2, that secondary phase, I'm rolling my cursor over, nothing's happening, but that's because, folks, I have to click. And then it reveals your data widget. Now I moved my cursor off of that even, and this all stayed, whereas hover effect is when you roll your cursor over and take it off, the objects that are being revealed go away. So do keep that in mind. Phase 2 then can be clicked again, and that widget then returns and goes away. So that's how the difference between hover and click works. Another thing inside of hotspots that I really enjoy, and I think it's a great use case when it comes to doing data descriptions or information, you can also bring in hotspots for video. You guys are going to see me. I think it'll, no, actually it will not allow. Hopefully it's okay. I'm going to hit allow. There we go. I don't know if it'll, there you go. Here I am. Hi, everybody. Hello again. This is where you can record a 1-minute video. If you're not able to actually live deliver data, remember, like, make the data so easy for your audience to understand. They don't know it. They don't live with it every day. It's very overwhelming for them. We might understand it. They're likely going to have a lot of questions. You can record a video and you can actually explain certain areas of your data and explain it. They hover over that area and your video comes up and you can actually explain it and offer a little bit of a face to the description as well. There's also audio. You can record an audio voiceover or already upload one that you might have available. Maybe you prefer to record them on your phone. I've done that sometimes. And you can then actually attach audio to any other object as well. So being able to actually verbally explain things within the data can be really powerful for that data storytelling and conversational presenting. Lots of cool options, everybody. All right, I do want to keep going. Here is where we now will talk about tables, excuse me. Back out to our main window of the data tab, tables, everybody. We have pre-filled tables, which are really fun, and I really enjoy the formatting of those. Again, a really great way to just get inspiration. I appreciate that our design team is doing that. You can obviously always select all these cells, change the fill color, and have this be a little bit more on brand for you. We can even adjust these colors. It's more to my brand style inside of this particular presentation deck, but a very customizable, very similar to kind of all of the things I think we've experienced in other table editing solutions. And I think that's a key thing. You can trust that you're going to have those same visibility points or flexibility points, I guess I should say, in the event that you want to merge any of your cells. Just triple click into it, select those cells, right click. This is where you have some additional options. And all of your additional customization with your fonts, colors, borders, and styles are up in the upper left corner. A couple of other things to cover when it relates to tables. If I select this table, everybody, notice up here at the upper left, I can connect data to this. This is nice. This is where you can actually bring in and connect to Excel Online. Connecting Excel Online, you'll need to log into your Microsoft account. You'll need to tell Visme what Excel file you want to connect to. You can actually hone in on the specific tab and the specific cells. Keep in mind, everybody, even with our charts and graphs, I talked about how you can connect Excel Online. Excel Online, because of Microsoft, and they have a lot of privacy and security things in place, you can connect, and this means that real data will feed in. Real-time data will come in with your initial connection. If that data in the Excel file should change, you will need to go back out into this project, click on that particular data asset, and you might need to update the data. So what we basically need to do is have an additional refresh call out to Excel Online, and that's just according to their security and privacy policies. You can also, though, connect to Google Sheets, being able to bring in a Google Sheet. Remember, I talked about how you can select specific spreadsheets and specific locations. All those are inside of there. Select your specific tab, hone in on your specific data ranges, and it'll feed that data right in here. Google Sheets has different parameters than Microsoft. You can trust that the Google Sheet will automatically continue to feed in any data as it is being updated in your Google Sheet natively out on Google Drive. So that's kind of a nice thing to be aware of. Also, up at the very top, you can embed tables in from these other solutions, everybody. So Airtable is so fun. I've seen such pretty tables inside of Airtable. This is basically like picking up your Airtable and setting it into your slide. So keep that in mind. Google Sheet, you can also then just directly embed a Google Sheet. Just keep in mind, however you have formatted that table out on those particular solutions or platforms, that's exactly how it's going to appear inside of your slide that you are embedding it on. Where if you're using Visme's native tables like this here, you have a lot more design customization and flexibility here. Just always like to make sure I hit on that for everybody. All right. We already kind of covered data widgets, everybody. Just kind of a pro tip here. Use images everywhere you can. This is a key statistic here that I feels like Jeff Boulos is a great marketer. He's huge, very well known in the space. And he's going as far to say articles and images get 94% more views than those that don't have them at all. And I'm actually, a lot of those statistics and that data I shared with you all today is actually coming from one of our very own landing pages and blog posts. But notice this here, everybody. For those of you that have seen all of the words and news out there about Visme Forms, check this out, powered by Visme Forms. Nice little spotlight there. If that's something really interesting for you, please join our Visme community. We're going to talk about that shortly and how you can get all the information about Visme Forms. We'll come back to that in a little bit here. But I'm going to drop in this really great blog post here. Share that with all of you. This is where I got all of that statistical data for you guys today that I used as my backdrop for data visualization. And even so, look at this. Look at this beautiful infographic that we've embedded here. See that? See the use of data widgets? I used data widgets earlier in that interactivity where I brought in those radials, and I even used the composition of text, large text, small text, coloring the text, adding in an arrow to show that visual increase to help the eye really understand and digest that information. So just a lot of great ways that you can use data widgets and use them to even complement text-based explanations. I think that's a really powerful function. And rounding things out here, everybody, we've got interactive maps and dynamic fields with about 5 minutes to go before I hit the top of the hour. Told you we had a lot to cover today, guys. I hope you're hanging in there and doing okay. Those of you still with me, thank you for being here. Hopefully Alan and Catherine are taking good care of you guys out there. They're awesome. Interactive maps, everybody. Oh boy, I wish I had more than just a couple minutes to go over this one because I love me some maps. Interactive maps, we talked about interactivity, right? Our maps are going to display data when somebody rolls their cursor over a location on that map. We, as you can see here, have countries, world, specific regions. I'm going to hone in specifically on the US. That is where I'm based. That is from a location standpoint. I'm very familiar with the different states. I'm located all the way up here in Wisconsin. Notice I hover on it and it reveals information. That's that hover effect, everybody. Again, best supported when you're creating those published project links. That hover over effect, PDFs don't like that. It will be supported also, if you guys, another download format that will support all of those dynamic features in Visme is HTML5. Not sure if Alan and Catherine have covered that for folks out inside of the chat and questions yet, but let's go in and edit this map. Notice here, everybody, all of the states are located in alphabetical order right here. Generally what I do, just like the chart data tab, right, everybody? It looks pretty similar. The interface here is relatively similar. What I do usually when I need to bring in data that would then be revealed on these specific columns, because notice here, this is data text. Hover on Alaska, see that? And it even brings in the column header. It's showing area and kilometers squared, but I can update my column heading to anything else I want. So generally what I do here, everybody, is I select all these states, copy and paste them, and I would take them out to a spreadsheet that looks something like this. This is where then you can bring in your data, VLOOKUP, for those of you that are familiar with formulas, If you're wanting to do some VLOOKUP, if you're doing any aggregate pivoting relating to state locations, you can then do VLOOKUP to match up any of those values here. Once you have all of your data master in, let me just do a quick, get my finger straightened out here. There we go. We're gonna do a quick selection, copy it, go back out to here, up to the tippy top, and paste. This is then bringing everything in that color, everybody. I want to bring forward heat maps. You might have noticed my quick tip there that I had in the last slide. Heat maps are everything. You can change your global map color if you want. You can do that here. If you just want a single color, again, revealing, it's bringing in that data. But what I love is if you're bringing in data series here, this little data tab where you can bring in that area value map, watch this. It's automatically building a heat map for me. Heat maps are so great to work with. Great to allow your audience to be able to digest the overall stretch of data as it relates to locations at a global scale, a local scale. Being able to insert that map in here, everybody. And as mentioned, that will be interactive then when you get on that slide. And keep in mind, I shared this presentation link earlier, everybody. As I'm making updates to it, you're welcome to go out and scope these out directly on your local system if you'd like. Hitting really fast on dynamic fields, everybody. Dynamic fields. I love this. Okay, so we've talked about charts and graphs. We've talked about the real-time publishing and changing of things with the latest and greatest data. Data also lives in text boxes. I showed you guys the use case of having text earlier, accompanying with some data widgets and stuff, of course. But the reality is when we're working with data, data sometimes can be very mastery data. It lives everywhere. For us, a great example of that is our number of users that we have using Visme worldwide. The number of users, as you can see here, see this little text box right here? I'm right here, everybody, in case you lost me. Notice how that text box is formatted a little bit differently. You see that? It's kind of highlighted in yellow. It's got brackets around it. That is a dynamic field, everyone. Any text box that you select, hit that edit button, and then click on that lightning bolt to open up dynamic fields. Alternatively, dynamic fields does live in the data tab. It's at the very bottom. There are some profile dynamic fields you can use that's specific to your information. So if you want to have like a sales deck and you want that sales deck to always be updated, should somebody use your template, they'll grab their own native version of that template and it'll auto-populate their profile details inside the contact area, perhaps. That's a great use case for profile. Custom, though, is where you can create your own. Notice here, this is our number of users, dynamic field. Let's say I need to change this then to 4 million users. Let's go back out to that slide here using that quick jump to here. Notice how it looked inside of the editor, everybody, but in the final slide view, it looks like this. Perfectly formatted with the rest of the text inside of this slide. So you still format it to how you want it to look. But let's say I need to change that. Let's say Visme is now hit 24 million, which I think indeed we have. So I'm going to hit that edit button. Now, keep in mind, these dynamic fields, everybody, could be used everywhere. They could be in infographics, social graphics. They could be in documents. They could be in presentation slides. They could be in hundreds and hundreds of projects. Updating data and updating information in all those places manually would be a huge time restraint. People do actually strategize in their content calendar every year, their content update timeframe. But there are features in Visme, dynamic fields being one of them, a couple of other features where we support scaled updating from one single source. One of them is slide library. We also support you to update a graphic image and replace that everywhere all at once as well. There are a lot of great features for that. Dynamic fields, though, because I updated that, everybody, let's just revisit, updated it to 24 million viewers. It was previously 23 million. Let's get back out to this slide here. I'm going to hit refresh. Hopefully I hit enough save points there, and that should do the trick for us to show you guys how that updates. Look at that. Immediate update. And if this was a statistic living across all of these different presentations, I can rest assured every single place was updated. That probably took me 5 seconds. Love dynamic fields, everybody. Hopefully that gives you some working ideas on how dynamic fields could help you. Quick thing about dynamic fields, everybody. They are available inside of Pro and Enterprise subscriptions. Pro subscription is going to have, I think, 8 dynamic fields for custom. You can have up to 8. In the case of an Enterprise plan, you're unlocking that cap. We support a lot more dynamic fields inside of our Enterprise plan offering. And additionally, we actually leverage the dynamic fields functionality for our Salesforce integration. For any Salesforce users out there, you can actually dynamically bring in properties and data from Salesforce directly out into custom dynamic fields and create ready-to-use sales presentations within a matter of seconds directly from Salesforce. If that's something of interest to you, please do reach out to our sales team. They'd be more than happy to have a quick discovery conversation, find out your needs, goals, and demonstrate that for you. All right, everybody, I'm 3 minutes over. I was really hoping I would have some spare time left. There's a lot more things to go over. Key thing, everybody, we want to see your projects. We want you to share your amazing work with us. Please do tag us out on the socials. You can @Visme app. You can hashtag made with Visme. We are curating a